Hello, my students, and welcome back to another lecture on the colliding worlds. Today, we shall be covering the Plague Knights of the Crusades, known as the Order of Saint Lazarus, a knightly order through many hardships which afflicted them, turned their greatest afflictions into their greatest strengths. Come then, my students, let us look at their story, as brought to us by our community member known as the Raven. It is unclear where the Great Plague came from. The theologians called it a manifestation of earthly sin, or a blight sent by the devils. The Crusaders, occupied only by their bloodlust, claimed it was a product of Saracen alchemy. The court alchemists despised such rumors, claiming it to be the product of corpse rot and old blood. Radical monks and clerical scholars claimed its symptoms matched with ancient Britannian myths of a Green Knight. The Pope would proclaim it was a scourge born of the deepest pits, to the delight and horror of the theologians, and the chagrin of the others. No matter what the cause might have been, it spread like wildfire. It started slow, skin discoloration emerging within hospitaller camps, and an agonizing numbness spreading from the extremities. Soon the telltale deformations would emerge, and the plague camps would be established. Yet the spread continued, and the symptoms worsened. Cartilage, which should have been absorbed into the body, instead hardened into solid bone. Skin began to layer and crack, becoming glossy like oiled leather. And the numbness grew to a complete lack of sensation. The infection soon escaped the Holy Land, ravaging villages and towns. Within the year, it had reached the Vatican, and the Pope declared a crusade on the blight. The death toll mounted, caused by unnoticed, festering wounds, or choking on misplaced bone or thickened skin, and the bodies were burned. On the front line against the sickness, in plague camps and rotting cities, were the Knights of Saint Lazarus. Their green cross became a symbol of fading hope. For even if they could not cure the sickness, they could tend to the infected and protect them from looters. Of course, the knights were afflicted too, quarantining themselves from uninfected civilization whilst they sought a cure. None would be found, and the order's apothecaries still labor within their fortress monasteries in the hopes of discovering a panacea. The plague would claim the life of the Pope soon after the crusade on the blight was declared, and Christendom would shatter. None would brave the quarantined Vatican City to elect a new supreme pontiff, and so the position sat empty. Cardinals and bishops would dictate dogma to their following, and diplomacy between the monarchs of Europe would collapse. Wars would erupt, but were quickly strangled in their infancy by the plague. The soldiers turned to banditry. Knightly orders began to dictate their own doctrine as well. Some would seek to reignite the Crusades, or to make the road safe, or to protect their meager holdings. But most would turn on the infected. The crusade on the blight became a crusade against its victims, and the purging of plague camps began. The Order of Saint Lazarus became the only bulwark against their once brethren. Many had succumbed to infection and strain, but a pious, or at least dedicated few, from amidst the citizenry would take up their position. These skirmishes amidst deserted streets and ramshackle shelters were bloody and needless, the infected knights asking only that their once compatriots leave the dying be. Some would listen, but many would not. Fueled only by blind fervor, and the order was further tempered by the unnecessary bloodshed. Seeing the immense suffering overcoming the world, the surviving Master's Knights would meet and proclaim a new goal for the order. Once the Son of God had come amongst the lepers, protected them, and healed them with his touch. Now the lepers would come amongst mankind and protect them with what remained of their lives and heal their afflictions as best they could. Procedures were developed, not a cure, but a barbaric scourging which hardened the blighted skin like iron and reduced the risk of infection. The 7 virtues were embraced as the path to salvation, and a quiet regret for their deeds as crusaders sat unacknowledged upon the older knights. Monasteries were built far from civilization, and the innocent afflicted, who were not knights or initiates, would be brought from the plague camps, leaving the world to heal. The plague would slowly pass. Whenever it would erupt again, the knights carrying the green cross would be there to comfort the infected and shepherd them to safety. Many would join their ranks, still too few, for there were always more in need of protection, but enough that they would not pass into extinction. The still living infected would receive ministration, and soon those infected with mundane leprosy would make pilgrimage too. It was found that the strains granted a sort of immunity against each other, and so they too were accepted. Those who could would use their talents and skills to aid the order, maintaining equipment or searching for a cure. Vatican City would remain uninhabited, rumors of monsters and curses keeping its gates sealed. There were rumors that a band of looters had occupied St. Peter's Basilica and declared their leader Pope. Slowly, the kingdoms of Europe would begin to function again, warring and trading as they always had. Some would join with knightly orders in an effort to take the Holy Land once more, but without a pope to declare a true crusade, the effort was for naught. A few ambitious monarchs would attempt to tax the order if it held a monastery on their land, but with no safe way to collect or enforce the tax, such schemes were quickly abandoned. Just as the world would settle back into its usual rhythm, the sunderings would appear. Tears in the firmament, burning with hellish light and strange colors. From them surged legions of demons, men, and iron beasts. The order would ride out to meet them, facing off against the endless tide, being drawn thinner and thinner by the never-ending threats. On the 7th day since the first sundering, a miracle would occur. Whilst facing down a legion of savage man-things and their beasts in the defense of a hamlet, Brother Baldwin of Orleans succumbed to the plague. The invaders rushed past his limp body, still breathing but unable to move. He would rise, shedding both his afflicted flesh and heavy armor for a body of divine light, as Saint Baldwin the Diligent, the first living saint of the order. He would drive the creatures from the hamlet with the sword of holy fire and stand watch over it for 3 more days before his body came apart and his soul ascended to heaven. Since then, many more brethren have attained the living sainthood in their last moments, their virtue protecting the lands of men from interlopers of all kinds, so that they too may find salvation. And that, I believe, is a fitting conclusion to this week's lecture. Thank you so much to those who have come and stayed until the end. Do be sure to submit your thoughts in the comments, and let me know what you would like to see next. And in the coming weeks we shall be returning to the Iron Harvest and the realm of Chronosia, so prepare for those upcoming lessons. This is the World Archivist, and I hope to see you there.